Hey class, how you doing? I am so sorry I can't see you, but here I am. I am actually in my bedroom, and so are our friends. I can show you them. There they are. They're all ready to hear a story. And even James in the back has decided to join us today. Now, obviously this is kind of rough. My wife, Mrs. Fenn, is working downstairs, and so she's claimed the dining room table, and my three boys, they're working in the basement, in the family room, so I'm kind of, I kind of have the corner of my bedroom here, so we're going to make the most of it. It's kind of hard with the lighting. I've got a whole lot of lamps over here, and I hope you can see okay. So, how's your spring break been going? I want to show you. I was at Roscoe Ewing Park yesterday and I found this rock. Can you guys see the fossil in there? It's a shell. But it's a good time to go outside, explore creeks around here. There are a lot of fossils in the creek beds around Medina here. All right, you guys remember this? Well, I found a copy in our house, and I thought maybe we should finish it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know what the best way to be. Maybe I can go like this, and I can show you the pictures like that, all right? But first, like we've talked about before, we should probably talk about what's happened in the story because we haven't really read it in a couple of weeks. So what I'm going to do is what we've always done is kind of look through maybe the titles of the chapters. We all remember Mr. Twit and his beard. Then of course there's Mrs. Twit with her glass eye. And they did all sorts of horrible things to each other, didn't they? We've got the frog and the wormy spaghetti, of course. And then, of course, Mrs. Twit got the shrinks. But finally, we kind of got to our story of the monkeys that live in the cage out in the garden. We know about how Mr. Twit likes his bird pie on Wednesdays and how he used the hug-tight glue to catch the birds on the tree. And the roly-poly bird came around and was able to warn other birds not to roost on the tree. So there was no bird pie for Mr. Twit. Then he put the glue on the cage, and the roly-poly bird warned them again, and once again there was no bird pie for Mr. Twit. All the birds went up to the roof and laughed at him. And I think that's where we kind of left off. So they were all laughing at him, and I think you guys remember the next section is called Mr. and Mrs. Twit Go Off to Buy Guns. Here we go. The next morning when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket, not a single bird was sitting on either the monkey cage or the big dead tree. They were all perched happily on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. The roly-poly bird was up there as well, and the monkeys were in the cage, and the whole lot of them were hooting with laughter at Mr. Twit. "I'll wipe that silly laugh off your beaks," Mr. Twit screamed at the birds. "I'll get you next time, you filthy, feathery frumps. I'll wring your necks, the whole lot of you, and have you bubbling in a pot for bird pie before this day is out." "How are you going to do that?" asked Mrs. Twit, who had come outside to see what all the noise was about. "I won't have you smearing sticky glue all over the roof of our house." Mr. Twit went very close to Mrs. Twit and lowered his voice so that neither the birds nor the monkeys could hear. "I've got a great idea," he said. "We'll both go into town right away and we'll buy a gun each. How's that?" "Brilliant!" cried Mrs. Twit, grinning and showing her long yellow teeth. "We'll buy those big shotguns that spray out 50 bullets or more with each bang." "Exactly," said Mr. Twit. "Lock up the house while I go and make sure the monkeys are safely shut away." Mr. Twit went over to the monkey cage. "Attention!" he barked in his fearsome monkey trainer's voice. "Upside down all of you and jump to it. One on top of the other, quick. Get on with it or you'll feel Mrs. Twit's stick across your backsides." Obediently, the poor monkeys stood on their hands and clambered one on top of the other, with Muggle Wump at the bottom, and the youngest child at the very top. "Now, stay there till we come back," Mr. Twit ordered. "Don't you dare to move, and don't overbalance. When we return in 2 or 3 hours' time, I shall expect to find you all in exactly the same position as you are now. You understand?" With that, Mr. Twit marched away. Mrs. Twit went with him, and the monkeys were left alone with the birds. Next section's called Muggle Wump Has an Idea. As soon as Mr. and Mrs. Twit had disappeared down the road, the monkeys all flipped back onto their feet the right way up. "Quick, get the key," Muggle Wump called out to the roly-poly bird, who was still sitting on the roof of the house. "What key?" shouted the roly-poly bird. "The key to the door of our cage," cried Muggle Wump. "It's hanging on a nail in the work shed. That's where he always puts it." The roly-poly bird flew down and came back with the key in his beak. Muggle Wump reached a hand through the bars of the cage and took the key. He put it in the lock and turned it. The door opened. All 4 monkeys leapt out together. "We are free!" cried the 2 little ones. "Where shall we go, Dad? Where shall we hide?" "Don't get excited," said Muggle Wump. "Calm down, everybody. Before we escape from this beastly place, we have one very important thing to do." "What?" they asked. "We're going to turn those terrible twits upside down." "We're gonna what?" they cried. "You must be joking, Dad." "I'm not joking," Muggle Wump said. "We're going to turn both Mr. and Mrs. Twit upside down, with their legs in the air." "Don't be ridiculous," said the roly-poly bird. "How can we possibly turn those 2 maggoty old monsters upside down?" We can," cried Muggle Wump. "We are going to make them stand on their heads for hours and hours, perhaps forever. Let them see what it feels like for a change." "How?" said the roly-poly bird. "Just tell me, how?" Muggle Wump laid his head to one side, and a tiny twinkling little smile touched the corners of his mouth. "Now and again," he said, "but not very often, I have a brilliant idea. This is one of them. Follow me, my friends, follow me." He scampered off toward the house, and the 3 other monkeys and the roly-poly bird went after him. "Buckets and paintbrushes," cried Muggle Wump. "That's what we want next. There are plenty in the work shed. Hurry up, everyone. Get a bucket and a paintbrush." Inside Mr. Twit's work shed, there was an enormous barrel of hug-tight sticky glue, the stuff he used for catching birds. "Fill your buckets," Muggle Wump ordered. "We are now going into the big house." Mrs. Twit had hidden the key to the front door under the mat, and Muggle Wump had seen her doing it, so it was easy for them to get in. In they went, all 4 monkeys, with their buckets of sticky glue. Then came the roly-poly bird, flying in after them, with a bucket in his beak and a brush in his claw. All right, I'd better stop. The next section's called The Great Glue Painting Begins. I hope you guys are all having a good spring break. I know it kind of feels different this year. Sure feels different for me. I miss you, and I can't wait to see you all. I might be able to see you actually next week online. The teachers on Monday, all of us teachers at Blake, we're going to be meeting online to figure out different lessons that we're going to give everybody, including second graders. And you know, this time you're going to have to do the lessons, and I will be grading them and looking at them. But hopefully we'll be able to meet online. That means that I'll be able to see you, and you'll be able to see me, and we can talk. I hope by maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. If not, I'm going to still send my videos. So have a good rest of your spring break. I miss you all. Take care.